Hi, my name is Holly Russo, and I did my observations at Taylorsville High School. My host teacher was Miss Twitchell, and she teaches English and the ESL students of the school. The classes I observed in were the ELL student-only classrooms, and one of them is for minimum to moderate English proficiency or none, and the second class is for more advanced English speakers and writers. The majority of her class spoke Spanish as their first language, but there were also Vietnamese, Swahili, and Portuguese home languages. The purpose of their class is to gain a better understanding of English in spoken and written forms, and they get the chance to practice, learn vocabulary, and do a lot of activities to help build their knowledge of English. Listening in the classroom, I was able to hear a lot of examples that demonstrated the different proficiency levels. And the three examples I would like to talk about are all from the none, minimum, to moderate English proficiency class. The first example I would like to talk about is when a student said, "They was kicking me." He was sitting in the back and yelled, "Hey!" And his mistake is interesting, but not a surprising mistake. So, "they was kicking me," that is just using the past tense singular form of was, or when it should have been "they were kicking me," which would have been third person plural. It took me a minute to try and think about why I knew it was wrong, just by hearing it, because I had to really think why is that grammatically wrong. And I think just naturally native English speakers associate words strung together in a certain way, and we just kind of know from hearing when something doesn't sound right. But this was a simple mistake to make, and all they have to do is change the was to were to make the sentence prescriptively correct. The second example comes from just walking around the classroom, and the students were working on a group worksheet together. The scribe for the group wrote, "I can go to store for you," with a question mark. As a response to what they were writing a question for their mom. I thought this was interesting, so I asked my host teacher about this, and she said that in Spanish, she speaks Spanish, that this would be the order of how the words would go. In Spanish, they would say, "Can I," in English, but "I can" for a question in Spanish. In Spanish, the pronoun would come before the modal verb to ask a question requiring permission to proceed. And so I thought that was kind of cool to learn why they thought that was correct, and it was because the students in the group were all native Spanish speakers. And I would like to note that I know this is not prescriptively correct, as the word should have been may, but I figured just changing "I can" to "can I" would be a better correction, because "can" is more common to use in a sentence like that. The last example I want to talk about is when a student came to the teacher while the students were working on some of their group work, and they were split into two groups, and one was more of the moderate level English speakers, and the other group was more of the little to some English proficiency. A male student raised his hand, and the teacher called his name, and the student was sitting with the lower group. He spoke a question to her in Spanish, which she does speak, so she did understand, but she reminded him to speak only in English. That's the class rule. And he said, "I need to make pee." I was kind of shocked at this, and she giggled. It was kind of a funny situation for the class, but not out of rudeness, but the teacher just corrected him and said, "I need to go pee." and the teacher said he could go, and he got up and left. And she came and talked to me about this, and she said that that was really common of our students to say. They always say, I need to make pee, I need to make bathroom trip. Like, I thought that was really interesting. And she was talking to me, and she said that she doesn't know why it's so common, but she tries to correct them when she can. And I thought this was interesting that the student was able to communicate that he needed to use the restroom, even though it wasn't with proper grammar. And I think that I had like a moment where I was like, I really want to figure out why they're saying it like that. So I was trying to look it up, and I realized why it made sense. So make and go are both verbs, and so it can be confusing because it's the same part of speech, just with a different meaning. So the sentence was strung together correctly, it was just the wrong verb. And so he is able to make the sentence in the correct form otherwise in the verb, but I thought this was a great example to share about just switching a word makes a big difference. And those are my concrete examples, and overall I had like a really amazing time with the students, and it was really cool to learn and see how an ELL classroom really works.